And we are back with some more of the Custom League, celebrating this 10-year anniversary of this channel. And then this one, we're going to go into the year one awards to start out. And then hopefully we can get through another couple of years here in the simulation. So not many awards here. I should take the time to set that up, I suppose, next year. But for now, it's just 3 awards over here. The most points award goes to Chris Keaton. Goal score award, Chris Keaton. And then the goals against award, Felipe Fortan. As we see by the goal leaders, I mean, no one was even close to Keaton. 64 to compare to 39 in second. And then assists. Keaton also had the most assists with 71. 135 points, just ridiculous. And then the 927 for Fortan. So for the MVP between Herrera, Keaton, and Stevens, I wonder who it could be. Yep, Chris Keaton. Playoff MVP will be, oh geez, Kaksangir Issa Zan Lee. That name is something else. Rookie of the year between Bruce Cunningham and Portneco. I mean, technically, when you think about it, basically everybody's a rookie, right? In this league anyway. So I'm surprised, honestly, that Keaton's not there. I guess you have to be a certain age, right? Yeah, you probably have to be 26 or younger. Keaton's like 30, right? Yeah. And so the rookie of the year is Daryl Bruce, 89 points in 76 games played. And the defenseman of the year between Linden, Ivanov, and Turkildson, it is Brian Turkildson of Salt Lake City. Defensive forward of the year between Roll, Dubé, and Sheffield, it is Pete Sheffield of Seattle. For the goalie of the year between Jensen, Fortan, and McCormack, it'll be Fortan of Tokyo. For the GM of the year between Collins, Martin, and Lang, it is Gene Lang of Atlantic City. For the best coach between Scherer, Pelkey, and Norman, you have Silas Pelkey. So that'll be it for the awards this year. All right, now it's July 1st. I'm going to add in a few more awards here. Let's go for best captain, so the leadership award, best defensive defenseman, and actually I think that'll be it. I'm going to change the trade frequency to like 35 because 50 seems a little high. Let's see how many trades teams made last year. Oh yeah, the Supernovas made so many trades. Let's see other teams. Seattle and Tokyo didn't make too many. Neither did Atlantic City or Wolfsburg. So it's really just the Checking Lions and Nova Scotia that made a lot of trades. So I guess we could leave it somewhere around 50 for right now. I just want to make sure that teams aren't moving their whole rosters here. And I don't think there's any other rules I want to change. So that being said, let's take a look at free agency. And oh wow, you got a lot of players in free agency this year. Rivard, Oma, Linden, Grayson, Herrera, Curry, Gray. Yeah, looks like a pretty good free agency this year here. Obviously, Lois River, 37 years of age, so can't imagine he's going to be hanging around too much longer in the league, but still a solid veteran pickup for any team who gets him. Jonathan Oma, 30 years of age, solid two-way defenseman. Greg Linden, good defensive defenseman. Patrice Grayson, solid two-way forward. I'm surprised Hector Herrera's here because he had 95 points for Nova Scotia last year. All right, so we're going to follow along free agency here and see where all the big guys sign. Oh, you have Hector Herrera going to Wolfsburg. So he moves from the Supernovas to the Wolves. And then Seattle signs Lois Rivard. So he goes from, looks like he was on 2 teams last year, actually, on Wolfsburg and the Crispus Elfrings. And he goes to Seattle for his second year in the league. As for the draft order, you have Fargus, followed up by the Checking Lions. I believe this is just reverse order of the regular season standings. Then you have the Wolves, Tugboats, Emeralds, Katanas, Supernovas, Lakers, Elfrings, and Boardwalk Bullet. Yeah, this is just the reverse order of the regular season standings. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to go into the draft itself because I don't see anywhere that would allow me to go into it. So it looks like we have to be on a team in order to do so. Right, we can always take a look at the draft log here. So Eric Brandstrom, apparently, Eric Brandstrom, the winger, goes first overall to the Fargus Holy Knights. And then you have Roger Beers going to the Checking Lions. Frank McGuire going to the Wolfsburg Wolves. Matthew Ricker going to the Halifax Tugboats. Then you have Leo Tyler going to the Seattle Emeralds. Carter Burke going to the Tokyo Katanas. Kristaps Skadins going to the Nova Scotia Supernovas. Dorian Mason going to the Salt Lake City Lakers. Vic Brick going to the Crispus Elfrings. And then to the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies will be Dan Neal. And so that wraps up your first round picks. We'll see how they all turn out soon, I'm sure. Let's follow along with free agency a little bit longer here just until all the big guys are signed. And then we'll move into year number 2. I would imagine most of the big guys have been signed by now, right? Yeah, looks like most of them have been signed. I didn't get messages about many of them though. So Paul Sutherland signs in Seattle. Arvid Nielsen signs with the Checking Lions. He was also previously with the Checking Lions. Hector Herrera, we saw him before. Patrice Grayson goes from Fargus to Wolfsburg. Charles Made goes from the Checking Lions to the Tokyo Katanas. Scott Little is a new player, I believe. Yes, indeed. Jonathan Omar goes to the Nova Scotia Supernovas after being with the Wolfsburg Wolves and Christmas Elfrings. Colin Getzlaff re-signed with Nova Scotia. Greg Walters goes from Halifax to Wolfsburg. Patrick Shockley goes from the Checking Lions to the Fargus Holy Knights. Is there any way for me to sort by ability here, so I could just see the top players instead of reading through every signing? That'd be great. You know what? Let's go through the transfer summary. That'd be a bit smarter, I think. So James Curry goes to the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. Then you got Dave Lively, Ray Gray, Bob Cunningham, all to the Christmas Elfrings. Yeah, this is much better than reading off of the free agency screen. Pat Nader, Andre Pervushin, and Arvid Nielsen go to the Checking Lions. Shockley and Seppa go to the Fargus Holy Knights. Matt Kelly, Zibnik, Christoph, and Josh Smith go to the Halifax Tugboats. Omar, Getzlaff, Jeff Jones, and Vince Crevens go to the Nova Scotia Supernovas. Nolan Chapdelaine, who though, and Scott Little go to the Lakers. Then you have Paul Sutherland, Marco Holopainen, Lois Rivard, Kurt Lancaster, Alexander Yazerski, and Michael Emmett to the Seattle Emeralds. Looked like Seattle had a pretty good free agency there, because Paul Sutherland's one of the better defensemen in the save file here. Yeah. Did they have him before? Or yeah, they had him before, so he re-signed. Yeah, this is including contracts that were re-signed on June 30th. Then for the Tokyo Katanas, you have Albin Rep, Charles Meade, and Iwan Everest. And then for the Wolfsburg Wolves, you have Greg Linden, Hector Herrera, Patrick Grayson, and Greg Walters. And they actually have a little summary over here. Seattle and Wolfsburg have gained the most value so far out of this free agency. It looks like the Checking Lions took a huge hit, although they do still have quite a few good players on their roster. Banchikov, McNeil, Krobot, and Hall of Fame induction. I can't imagine there's... I was about to say, there's no one in the Hall of Fame yet. So it looks like every team in the league signed all of their prospects. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Most teams didn't have a whole lot of players to begin with, just because of the fact that, you know, it's a new league. So there was only going to be roughly the amount of players necessary for each team, you know. All right, here's the season preview for year number 2. The early cup favorites this year appear to be the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies, because of course they did have the best regular season last year. I mean, they didn't win the cup, but they are still undoubtedly a good team. Yeah, I mean, they still have Chris Keaton, so that's really all you need. And they can expect challenges from the Seattle Emeralds and the Wolfsburg Wolves. So those are the other contenders, it looks like. There's Seattle's roster. There's Wolfsburg. That's a bit surprising from Wolfsburg, actually, considering how their roster isn't nearly as impressive as Atlantic City's or Seattle's. So it'd be interesting to see what Wolfsburg can do this year. Among the dark horses, Fargus stands out, really, despite their poor performance last season. Oh wow, Fargus got really good. They have 2 5-star abilities now from their players who played last year with them. Patterson and Portnenko both grew significantly, it looks like. Not to mention they got Brandstrom in the draft, who's a 3-star out of the gate. Yeah, he's real good out of the gate. Wouldn't be surprised to see him win Rookie of the Year there. So I'll definitely keep an eye on Fargus this year. The scoring race will likely be between Chris Keaton, Kaxingir, Issa Zanley, and Artem Portnenko. Yeah, that makes sense. Top defenseman in the league considered to be Valentin Ivanov of Tokyo, Vitaly Kulik of Salt Lake City, and Maxim Banchikov of the Checking Lions. And among goaltenders, you have Nate McCormack of Atlantic City, Mark Carroll of the Nova Scotia Supernovas, and Jonathan Jensen of the Fargus Holy Knights, who appear to be the top 3 goaltenders in the league. So with that, we will simulate through the regular season of year number 2. Oh, we have a trade between the Boardwalk Bullies and the Katanas, and Felipe Fortin going to the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. So the winner of the best goalie in the league last year gets traded. Interesting. Chris Keaton only has 25 points so far this year in 24 games. Wow, that's quite a fall off so far. And it looks like Glenn Stevens is the one who's dominating this year. 46 points so far in 32 games played. And second is Portnenko with 31. Oh, you have player poll results. Best skaters, Chris Keaton. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, that would make sense. Hardest shot is Kurt Lancaster of the Seattle Emeralds. Toughest player is Tom Leftwich of the Christmas Elfrings. Fastest, Chris Keaton. Best role model, Lois Rivard. The cleanest, Arunas Klimavicius. Some of these names, man, they are certainly hockey names. Controversial, Gani Pepito of the Fargus Holy Knights. Overrated, wait, what? David Hockey? There's no way. There's no way. This guy named David Hockey is 19 years of age. He has yet to play a single game in the league, but there is nonetheless a guy with the last name Hockey. I like how it says his international popularity is superstar, even though he doesn't have any career games played. As if he's just a superstar just because of his last name. And underrated, Tim Lyons of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. Smartest, Andre Pervushin of the Checking Lions. Toughest goalie to beat, Nate McCormack of the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies. Yeah, that makes sense. And the coach you'd most like to play for, Brad Hadley of the Wolfsburg Wolves. The Halifax Tugboats are making trades left and right. I think I might have to turn down the trades. Yeah, because this is definitely not the first time we've seen this. Tokyo's trading away a lot of guys too. Yeah, I'm going to turn that in trade frequency to like 35, I'm going to say. Oh, the Seattle Emeralds have fired Carl McKinney, and towards the end of the season as well. So I'm guessing Seattle is... Oh, no. They are in 4th. So they're in 4th, and they fired their coach? Interesting. And they're not doing too bad. A plus 14 differential. 37 wins, 10 overtime and shootout wins. Yeah, I don't know why they fired their coach, to be honest. Seems a little weird. Anyway, we are at the end of the regular season here. No one actually hit 100 points on the season. However, it does seem that Chris Keaton has reclaimed his title as the highest scoring player in the league for a second consecutive year with 97 points in 75 games played, followed up by Issa Zanley, Portnenko, Klamar, and Stevens are the top 5. And in goal with at least, I'm going to say 20 games played, have Carroll with a 930 save percentage, Jan Tatar, who is a half-star ability at 18 years of age with a 928 save percentage in 30 games played. Goalies in this game are wild, man. Goalies are wild in this game. Lucas Bues has a 925 save percentage in 73 games played. Shalnev of the Seattle Emeralds has a 921. And Nielsen of the Checking Lions also has a 921. So here's what the league is looking like. Nova Scotia finishes first with 141 points. Christmas Elfrings finished in second with 133. The Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies finished third with 132. The Seattle Emeralds finished fourth with 126. The Fargus Holy Knights, they make the playoffs this year with 125 points. The Salt Lake City Lakers finish in 6th with 110. The Checking Lions, they also make their playoff debut this year with 108 points. And the Tokyo Katanas are in 8th with 107 points. And the two teams outside the playoff picture are the Halifax Tugboats. So one of the teams that was in the final last year, of course, Nova Scotia won, but nonetheless, one of those two teams did fall out. And then the Wolfsburg Wolves with 81 points on the season to finish 10th. And here is the bracket for the year 2 playoffs. You have the Tokyo Katanas versus the Nova Scotia Supernovas, the Checking Lions versus the Christmas Elfrings, the Salt Lake City Lakers versus the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies, and the Fargus Holy Knights versus the Seattle Emeralds. And the champions of year number 2 are the Salt Lake City Lakers. They go through the Atlantic City Boardwalk Bullies, the Seattle Emeralds, and the Checking Lions in the finals. And then the third place game, the Seattle Emeralds take third over the Nova Scotia Supernovas. Oh, that's right. The All-Star game is the rest of the league versus the champions. So the All-Star game this year was the Nova Scotia Supernovas versus the rest of the league, and it was 3-1 in favor of the rest of the league. Interesting. So that's why it was Team Blue in year number 1, because there was no previous champion. I get it now. So I wonder how the roster was done that year, like for Team Blue compared to Team WWSY HL. I wonder if it was just randomly assigned teams then in that instance. Probably how it worked for year number 1. And here we go. Time for the awards of year number 2. So doing 2 awards ceremonies in one video here. And for the points award, you have Chris Keaton once again. The goal scorer award, Artem Portnenko. For the goals against award, you have Nick Cannon of the Elfrings. Best defensive defenseman goes to Brian Turkildston of the Salt Lake City Lakers. And the best captain goes to Vitaly Kulik of the Salt Lake City Lakers. For the MVP between Kulik, Keaton, and Issa Zanley, it is Chris Keaton once again. The playoff MVP is Vitaly Kulik of the Salt Lake City Lakers. The Rookie of the Year between Frank McQuire, Eric Brandstrom, and Remy Tessier. It is Remy Tessier of Halifax. I thought for sure it'd be Brandstrom with how talented he was right out of the draft, going first overall. Defenseman of the Year between Kulik, Turkildsson, and Patterson. It is Vitaly Kulik of the Salt Lake City Lakers. Defensive Forward of the Year award between Andrew Marshall, James Bowering, and Ron Cooper. it is James Bowering of the Salt Lake City Lakers. The goalie of the year between Mark Carroll, Lucas Buis, and Nick Cannon is Mark Carroll of the Nova Scotia Supernovas. 930 save percentage and 9 shutouts. Wow. GM of the year between Dave Collins, Nicola Cogliandro, and Chris Anwini of the Nova Scotia Supernovas. It is Nicola Cogliandro of the Fargus Holy Knights. And for the best coach between Roy Childs, Brian Fraser, and Joe McConnell, it is Brian Fraser of Fargus. Oh, we have a free agency preview here. So significant unrestricted free agents include Fortan. He's only a 1-star ability, but he was the best goalie of the year last year. Unfortunately, it looks like this year only played 3 games total. Fargus and Halifax do not have anybody going to free agency. Gary Shields is leaving Salt Lake City. James Kelly and Pete Sheffield both leaving Seattle with 3-star ability. And that seems to be the bulk of the good players going to free agency this year. All right, I think that'll be about it for this one. I wanted to get through 2 years, but after seeing the time that I've been recording for, I think we need to wrap things up here. And I think we're just going to do 1 year per episode. I think that sounds fair. So with that being said, we'll wrap this one up here. And the next one, we will go through year number 3 in the WWSY Hockey League.